Hey guys, I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to cover what I showed y'all the other day. So this is just going to be me kind of demonstrating how this works in theory. And the way that I do it is more than likely not the best practice, but I'm going to show y'all anyway. These game characters also are not game ready characters. I didn't optimize them for games before I imported them. These are just for testing. So I'll go ahead and show you if you haven't seen the video already. Now that one I was just playing around with the spine, so you'll see. I'll show you because I was going to demonstrate that to you as well. And let me go ahead and explain to you how this works. So right here I'm using CCDIK. You can use CCDIK for this. You can use Fabrik, or you can use 2BoneIK, and I'm going to demonstrate this for each. On this one, I just went ahead and set the root bone to pelvis. Normally you would set it to the clavicle, which is the shoulder bone, so that you're going from the shoulder down to the hand or the tip of the finger if you're pressing a button and you want the finger to actually touch the button. So that's what I'm doing in this case. So if I just move that back over, you'll see she doesn't actually lean with it, but her hand still goes towards the button. In this case, it's not actually touching it because, like, I originally set this up for Fabrik, not for CCDIK. The CCDIK is like Fabrik, but it's supposed to be more performance friendly, I believe. This is Fabrik. You'll see that this one I did specifically design for that, and that's because I use the other hand. For some reason I decided to switch hands for each one. I don't know why I did that, but anyway. So you'll also see I can use 2BoneIK to do the exact same thing. They're all a little bit different and all have their special use cases, but they all pretty much work in a similar fashion. I'm not going to try to break down the differences between these. You'll just have to look into the documentation on that yourself. So before I get started, I'm gonna explain what I'm actually doing here. So on the animation I'm playing to press the button or pull the lever, right here I'm just catching this, and then I'm feeding that catch into here. The reason why I'm catching this is because when you're doing a layered blend per bone for upper body and lower body, what you're going to need is you're going to need to get the default pose, and you're going to need to feed it into that slot animation that's playing, that's going to play over the top of it, and then you're going to need to use that as the pose you're blending the upper bone to. And other people have made videos on this and have probably described this better than I could, because I'm still pretty new at this. But this is your default catched pose. So during that particular frame, that particular motion or pose that your character is in, it's going to blend between these. There's no need to set a weight here because the upper body animations will only be played when they are activated. Therefore, you don't need to blend into them. Over here, I just created a new branch filter here, and I told it to start from the spine 1 bone and blend up 4 bones. I believe that's how the blend depth works. You can read more about it if you're confused. I'm not going to go into all the extra options right here, but over here when you're working with IK, you have to convert from local, which is what this uses, to component. It is a bit expensive, and the documentation says that you should try to do it as few times, convert from local to component as few times as possible, because every time you convert from local to component, it does have a cost. And so you should try to do it the least amount of times that you can, rather than just having these conversions scattered throughout your animation blueprint. So once you've, this also does that automatically. It'll automatically convert that when you swap over like that. So the Fabrik node, what it does is it takes in a tip bone, which is the last bone, and the root bone, which is where it's going to do the solver from. So it's going to solve, in this case, from the shoulder all the way down to the tip of her finger. For the Fabrik, it's going to use a precision of 1 and a max iteration of 10. These control performance, and I would recommend not messing with these until you know what you're doing. Up here, I am getting the location of the button. I'm getting the transform of it, and I'm sending it to the player from the button, and then I'm grabbing it from the player inside the event graph, as you can see right here. I'm doing the same thing with the lever. The only difference with the lever is that it has to follow it continuously as it moves, and I'll show you how I do that. So back over here in our AnimGraph, instead of using for the alpha, instead of using a float value, I am using an AnimCurve value. And what that does is it prevents me from having to do a lot of extra, add a lot of extra junk code around my blueprints, telling it, say, hey, this alpha needs to be this value at this particular time. The reason why the alpha is important is because it tells it how to blend across these frames. So the alpha will increase, and as the alpha increases, it'll blend more of the Fabrik IK, the IK into the motion. So if you don't do this, if you don't blend it, and you just set it to 1, which is, it's a 0 to 1, 0 being off, 1 being on. If you set it straight to 1, then what happens is the arm will just snap to that location. It won't blend. In fact, I can demonstrate this for you here real quick, and I will show you what that looks like. So right now I have the alpha as 1. So you see it just snaps straight to it, and it'll stay there following it. So let's switch back to my AnimCurve value. So an AnimCurve can be set inside of the animation itself. And what that allows you to do is that allows you to control how the IK is implemented over that specific animation. And it also allows you to activate it only during that animation. That's why I used the alpha curve, or the AnimCurve. So let's go ahead and look over there at that, and I will show you here real quick. After we do all this, I am going to manually start from scratch, and I'm going to show you how we did all that. So if I come over here and I select this, and I open the blueprint, you'll see how I'm doing this. Basically, when they overlap, I am getting the Anim instance, I'm casting it. There might be better ways to do this also, by the way, but again, this is just for learning purposes. And then I'm getting the player controller and I'm enabling input for this blueprint on the player controller. And then I'm disabling it for this blueprint on this blueprint. So whenever I enable the input, it will allow the player to press the key E to execute this logic. It's just getting, as you can see, it's just a cube, and on that cube I have an arrow, and that arrow is where they're going to push the button, and then the button's going to go this way. So this is the animation for the button. It just goes up to 1 and then it goes back down to 0. So the button goes in and then it comes back out. And that's what I'm doing here. The reason why I'm getting the component bounds and I'm multiplying it by the alpha is because the extent x goes halfway into this. So if you look at this from the left and you scroll in, the extent x is the distance from here to here. So it's from here to here. So I'm getting that distance and I'm multiplying it by that value. So if it's 0, the location offset, I'm using relative location. That means its position relative to this blueprint, or its parent, right, the root, not the actual world location. And that's why this works, is because as this value goes up to 1, this value will come in, it'll increase. And that's why I multiply it by -1. So as this value climbs up, the extent x is increased. It goes up. And then I multiply it by 1 to make it go the opposite direction, to make the value go down, which will move it in this direction, I believe. Yeah, to the right. Then over here I am just playing an animation. This is the animation. So if I come over here, I open up this animation. This is the Montage. Let's open up the actual animation. It has to be an Montage. To create an Montage, you just right click and create Montage. Now down here, the curves, this is what controls the Fabrik node, or any of those IK nodes I'm using. And basically, if I just pause this, you'll see that I want the IK to slowly be added to this as her hand reaches for the button. And I want it to kind of top out somewhere around the point at which her hand meets the full up position and out position of the animation. I made this animation, so it's just a real simple animation. And then it just stays at that full position all the way through the rest of it. That controls the on and off of the IK, like how much of the IK is being blended in. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. First off, I'm going to import my animations. I've already started that, and I'm just going to choose the skeleton of the character that the animations were made for. and it failed to import those for some reason. Let me delete this and try again. I forgot to do that as well. There we go. I'm probably not going to do the lever one, but I guess I'll go ahead and import it anyway. Not sure why that one did that, but I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. We're not going to use it. I'm just going to show you all the button one for now. So, first off, what we need to do is we need to open up him, choose skeleton, or just double click the skeleton itself. Go to Retarget Manager, or go to Window and Retarget Manager. Then you're just going to auto map it. I just add those just for brevity purposes. I don't think it's really necessary. Well, first you need to open up him, choose skeleton as well, select humanoid rig, auto map. They must both be in the same pose, the Unreal Engine pose. So we'll go to animations and retarget, duplicate, select that. I hope I didn't do that too fast. So I'm just selecting this. It should show up. If it's not, if it shows nothing here, then what you need to do is you need to come back over here. You need to open up the skeleton and go to the preview scene settings, and it should say apply right here. And all you have to do is press apply and then do it again. Try it again. So select it, change. I'm going to put it in here under motion and retarget it. And now we're going to minimize that. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it Blueprints. I'm going to create a new blueprint class. I'm going to call it BP button. Open this up. We're just going to add a cube in here, and I'm going to lock this scale and then scale it down to 0.1. Then I'm going to type in arrow, and I'm going to add that arrow. With the cube selected, it'll put it under it'll parent the cube to the arrow. The arrow will be a child of the cube. Then after you've done that, just move on. You might have to come up here to the position grid snap value. You might have to turn it down to like 5, and then move it to where it's just flush against the surface. Now, under event graph, we're just going to remove this, and actually we need to add a sphere collision. Sphere collision, it needs to be big enough for, you can make it 64, or like I'm doing, I'm just going to make it 128, so it's big enough. If it's too small, you might get bugs when you're trying to activate it. On begin overlap, and select the sphere again and go down to the bottom and select on component end overlap. And actually I forgot to do something here, so select the third person BP and go to blueprints. We're just going to duplicate this, and we're going to call it my player character, and I'm just going to drag this under blueprints as well. I'm going to double click him, and I'm going to assign some guy as the mesh, and I'm going to go into my animations folder, motion. I'm going to move this to the root of my animation folder so I can get to it easier, and I'm going to press the back arrow under Anim class. Now what we're going to do is, on these component begin and overlaps, we're just going to drag off of other actor. What that's just going to do is this is only going to return actors that are overlapping, and we're going to cast to my player character the blueprint that we just duplicated and renamed. And I'm just going to do this for both for now. And then I'm going to right click on as my player character. This is the out. So what this is this is a reference to your player character itself. If the cast didn't fail. So this is cast failed, this is succeeded. And we're just going to promote this to a variable. And I'm just going to call it my player ref. Now we're going to right click over here and do a custom. Oh, actually let's finish this one first. So we need to get the player controller. So get player controller. Oops, wrong one. Player controller. We're going to say enable input, and it'll set this as a target, but you need to just hold down control and drag it over here to the player controller. The target is this blueprint. We want to enable input on the player for this blueprint. And then down here, we're just going to disable it. Oops. Yeah. We need to disable input. And again, change this to player controller. Now, what we're going to do is we're just going to type in keyboard, and we're going to choose a key down here that we want to be the interaction key. I'm just going to use E. And then we're going to also type in custom event, and we're going to call this press button. And off of here we're going to choose a timeline. We'll name this button animation. And we're going to move this from play to play from start, because we always want it to play that from the start. We're going to double click on that. We're going to create add a float track. And then we're just going to call this button alpha. Add a add 3 keyframes here. I'm going to put this one at 0, 0, and this one will be at 0.50. And up here under the length, we're going to select 0.5, and then we're going to set this to 0.25, which will be halfway through, and then set it to 1. And then you can press these 2 buttons to scale out. And now we have a value that's going to go up, and then it's going to go back down from 0 to 1 and 1 to 0. Now we're going to type an asterisk and choose float times float. And we're going to choose the cube. I'm just going to type in bounds, get local bounds or get component bounds. Let's get component bounds. Always do that. There we go. And then just split the box extent, and we're just going to use the X. You could probably use Y too. It probably would work just as well. And then I'm just going to press Ctrl W to duplicate that. I'm going to say set relative location. And this is just going to set a relative location, its location to the parent. Set the location of the component relative to its parent. So that means we don't have to use real world space values. We can just say plus 50 and it'll move this 50 units to in the positive direction away from the parent along the x-axis. We're going to multiply this again by an int of -1, and we're gonna we're gonna split this, and we're gonna set this as the x location. That's all we have to do on that one for now. On this one, let's see. There's a lot going on over here at the moment. I didn't realize we were going to have company. Anyway, let's see. Let's see what I'm missing. Oh yeah, we need to get the button transformed. That's going to be the arrow. So we're just going to get the arrow right here. We haven't actually set that up, so let's get our player reference. And let's go back to our player character and the blueprint that we created with our player in it. We're going to create a variable, and it's going to be called button transform. And we're going to change this to a transform, compile it, save it, go to the button. Then we're going to set button transform. Get transform. We're going to get world transform because this needs to be in world space. And we're going to set that. And then we need to tell the player to play an Montage. Let's see, we need to get the Anim instance first for the mesh. So get Anim instance and look for the one that says mesh beside it. And that'll automatically create this mesh node for us. And then off of here, we're going to play montage or montage play. And I put all this a little bit too close together. And then we're going to move this up. And then under here, we don't have anything because we have not created a montage. So right click your animation, go to create Anim montage. And then press the back button. And I do believe that's all we need to do there for now. Now go ahead and open up your base animation, not the animation montage, but the actual animation to it. And under first we need to make an anim notify. So what you're going to do is move this and find the location. I think it's at about 14 is when it peaks out. So over here, I'm just going to type in 14 and we're going to right click here and add a notify, new notify, and I'm going to call it button pressed. And then I'm going to add a curve. Just press this curves button here. Go to add curve and go to create curve. I'm just going to call this button alpha curve, I guess. You can make it shorter, just call it button alpha, I guess. In fact, I'll go ahead and rename that. Double click on that, and then you're going to right click and add a key here. That's at 0.47, so we're gonna change this to 0.47. Actually, you might have to play around with these values. I think it needs to be a little bit farther out. And we need to add a key to the beginning and the end. Yeah, that's fine. So the last one here needs to be at 1. And this one needs to be at 1. And then we need to add another key somewhere around here to bring it down. Right click and drag to move. Use your mouse wheel to scroll out. I think this might need to be a little farther out this way, and this one might need to be a little closer. And then to smooth it out, we can change it to user is fine. Select the other one and change it to user. That should be fine. Now we can come in here and tweak it if we need to. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have the animation trigger this press button. And in order to do that, I think we need to specify a reference within the, let's see, we'll call it button ref. There's probably a better way to do this. But for now, I'm just going to do it this way. BP button. I'm going to compile, save it, go back to the button. We're going to drag out our player reference. And you could probably put it right here as well. But I'm going to say button reference, set button ref. I want to get a self reference. In case y'all are wondering how I did that, I'm just selecting the first one and then selecting the second one and pressing Q, and it aligns them. Also, if this one was off, you could select this one first and then this one and press Q, and it'll align it that way. I'm kind of dragging feet through this tutorial, sorry about that. Let's see. So now that we've done all this, we should have everything ready. So what we need to do is you need to go to your animation blueprint under your animations folder, double click on it, and then right in here under the event graph, right click and type in button pressed. And right here you'll see event anim notify button pressed. And then off of actually, let's go up here. Let's say anim initialize event blueprint. If you do begin play, it will not actually get a reference to it and store it properly, and your references will be blank. So I'm going to do it off of initialize animation, and I'm just going to try get pawn owner, and I'm going to cast to my player character. And then I'm going to do the same thing, my player ref. And then I can just delete that. And then press Ctrl W. And do it that way. But just know that if you do it this way, and you have multiple characters, then your characters should all be children of a parent character class, and in that case you would be casting to that parent class, and all these values should be accessible that way. So under here we're just going to get this. We're going to get the button ref. If you don't have this, then you probably cast it to the third person player character instead of the one that you're using. And then out off of here, we're going to, let's see, what did we call that again? Press button. Okay. We're going to type press button, and that's all we're doing there. I may have done it a little bit different on mine. Let's see. Under the event graph. Okay, so I'm just storing a direct reference to the button over here. Okay, I think what I'm doing over here on this one is I'm setting it from the button. Yeah. So another way you can do this too is you can create a button reference right here, and then on your actual button you could say, you could get your player character and you could say get anim instance. You could cast that to the animation blueprint, and then you could store a reference to self that way. But that's pretty much it for the setup. Everything should be working, except we need to have a reference to our button transform inside of here. So get your player character, get button transform, promote to variable. I'm just going to leave it as button transform, and then just hook it up right here. Now we're going to go to the Anim graph. Oh, there's something I forgot to do here. So let's go back to the button press animation. We have to go to the animation montage, and then underneath the animation montage we're just going to select slot. We're going to create a new slot. Actually, don't do it that way. Go to AnimSlot Manager over here on the right. Go to Add Group. I'm just going to say Anim. And then I'm going to add a slot under that. I'm going to call it Upper Body. And I only did that to show y'all how you can create a group outside of the default group. And then you go over here to slot name, and anim.upperbody is going to be what you select. He's going to go into a default pose here, and that's okay. You can just reopen it if it does that. In my case, I don't really need it to. Over here, we're going to catch new save catch pose, or save pose catch. Let's see, you can also go under catched pose and new save catched pose, and we're just going to call this default pose, and then we're going to get a layered blend per bone, and then we're going to grab that default pose, use catched pose default pose, and we're going to duplicate it, and off of here we're going to type in default slot. So right here under montage, slot, default slot, we're going to do that. And now that we've chosen our default slot, we can change it to our anim upper body slot. So this will catch any upper body animations that's being played through montage as a montage. It'll grab that, and we're going to blend that into the current default catched pose. We're going to leave the default weight as 1, and we're going to come up here to the config under details, layer setup, press this down under branch filters. We're going to create one, open this up, and we can go back to our skeleton here, and we can choose a bone to start blending from, and I'm probably just going to use spine 1. That seems to work fine. So spine _01, I believe it was. Also, you can just right click and copy selected bone names and then paste it in here. And then I'm just going to use a blend depth of 4. You can play around with that. Then off of this, I'm just going to type in Fabrik, uncheck context sensitivity to be able to see it, or else you won't see it. We're going to drag that output into here. We're going to get our button transform. We're going to drag that into the effector transform. Right here, we're going to change this from an alpha input value to an anim curve value. It's going to ask us for the name. So if you need to, you can come back over here to your animation and double click it, and you can select the curve and press F2 to select the name. Press Ctrl C to copy it. Go back over here. Now under our anim curve name, we're going to paste in the curve name. Up here, the effector transform space needs to be changed from component space to world space, because this transform we're given it is in world space. And as the tip bone, we're going to choose in this case, I am using my right hand to push the button, so I'm going to choose my index right, because it's the right finger, the index right finger. I'm going to choose index 3R. 3 is the last bone in the index. If you're not sure, you can come over here and select these, and you'll see what they represent. So 3 is the last joint. And then, as the root bone, I am going to choose clavicle R. So it's going to go from as... actually, I got that backwards. We need to go index left, index 3 L, and clavicle L. So it's going to go from his left shoulder down to the tip of his index finger. We're going to compile and save. Make sure you have everything set up correctly. And then, let's see, hopefully I didn't miss anything. I'm going to go to blueprints and I'm going to drag this out. And I am going to rotate this until I see the arrow. And that way I'll know it's in the right direction. And I forgot to replace this, so I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go to world settings, select third person game mode. I'm going to select my character, drop the selected game mode, expand to that, and then press the back arrow. And then go to place actors and player start and just drag a player start into there. And now start. And there you go. And you can play around with that curve value to get the to get it synced better if you feel it's not synced properly. And that's it. So I hope this helped you guys. I had to look through the documentation and some other things to figure this out. It took a bit of playing around to get the hang of it, but it's actually not that hard to press buttons and pull lever. Pulling levers is a bit harder, I'll admit that, but it uses the same concept, and the only difference is that you have to keep updating the transform of the arrow as it follows the lever. And what you do is, in the case of the lever that I was using, I'll go ahead and show y'all. So over here, if I find a lever, I'll right click and browse to asset. I'll open up this lever and you'll see it has a skeleton on it. And this, if we go to the skeleton tree, this actually I got off, let's see. I got it off of CG Trader. It was a whole pack of them. Let's see. It's made by Loaf BRR and it's free. Then it comes with all of these, and they have bones already set up on them. So I had to make the animation for it going from up to down myself. He does have one that starts off in the center. I think it goes down and then it goes all the way up. And you can still use that one, but I decided to just make my own. And basically what I'm doing is I'm getting that arrow and I'm attaching it to this bone right here. So if we edit lever and open this up, you will see that under the parent socket I have that bone selected, this one right here, which is the bone that controls the handle. And so as it moves, it just follows it. And over here I'm using the same method. Now let's see. So it plays the animation. Oh, I think I did something here on this animation. No, I didn't. Okay. I thought I'd maybe was sending the location coordinates to it through there. So you'll see every time it updates the animation, it's getting a reference. It has a reference to the actual lever blueprint, and every time it updates this animation, it gets the arrow's new world location or transform, and it's setting it here. And then over here, it's just getting it, and it's using Fabrik to, and that's why her hand actually snaps to it and follows it. So if y'all guys have any more questions, let me know down in the comments. I made this pretty long, so I hope that didn't bother too many people, but I wanted to make sure I was thorough with it, and I did it from scratch, so I'm not real used to doing these videos from scratch like this. So yeah, if you like this, like down below and subscribe. Thanks.